Here.
Trustee Tate. Trustee Todd. Here. And Trustee Zupan. Here.
Okay. We're going to go down to public comment. All questions and comments will be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to village business. Each speaker is allowed one opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes and will not engage in debate. Is there a microphone that someone can put up there? Oh.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Renee Richardson from 22326 Cornell. And I just want to first say to the mayor himself, I gave you a call and was hoping that you would have responded, but I never got a response back. I left it on your phone number that you had gave me, and I called you and was hoping for a response in regards to some things that's happening here in the village with me personally. But it was in regards to paying a $50 fine, and I was charged $150 instead of $50. I came up here to pay the fine, but when the young lady went in to see how much I owed, she said, "Well, Ms. Richardson, you owe $150." $150 for a fence that I had already had up, in which I don't mind paying $50. But I took an old fence down and put up a new fence because it was raggedy when I bought the house. So I called myself trying to upgrade, but I don't mind paying $50. But $150, and my neighbor put up a fence with me at the same time. He was charged $50. So that kind of, threw me up in the air. But that's what I wanted you to call me about. So maybe you could explain it to me better, why I was charged $150 instead of just $50. So maybe you could look into that for me.
I will. I just want you to finish. You said you had 2 things.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Then I have been, since I've been going through a whole lot of different things, I have been going to different villages and sitting in on different meetings with different mayors and stuff, trying to learn the political system, okay, because I am not a political person. So there's different things that I have been doing on my own for the last 5 or 6 months to try to understand the ins and outs of some of the different communities that which I own homes in. So I go to the meetings trying to, learn, so I can figure my way if I'm going to get into politics or not. So this is the reason why I'm asking, this question. There was something on my iPad that I had listened to that we talked about in some of the meetings here. What I wanted to know if, and then I had got some verifications and stuff like that on my own. Huh?
No, she just said, yeah, less than a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I wanted to see maybe if you could answer a question for me, or maybe if you can tell me. It's in regards to tips, since we have been talking about that here in our meetings, in the meetings which you have been talking about. And I wanted to know, one of the questions was, who are the trustees assigned to our tips here in this community? That was one question. And we sat and we talked about something else. Why is the finance director here over a certain tip? Okay. So if you can answer that.
As far as the fence is concerned, I have to look into that. I don't even know why you would charge $50 unless it's a building permit. If that's what that is, then the building permit goes according to how much material you're going to spend. So I don't understand, so I'm not going to try to answer that, but it goes according to job. So I just want to make sure before I even say anything that I find that out. And first of all, I apologize for not getting back with you. I've been here the last 2 weeks. I've been really, really busy, but that's still not an excuse. Then I should have gotten back with you, and I'm sorry I didn't. And a lot of times you can catch me, I'm here every day. Just come and ask someone, I want to talk to the mayor. You know, if I'm in the meeting point, naturally that's one thing, but if not, then it won't be a problem. And quickly, as far as the TIF trustee, the village is the TIF trustee. We're the trustee for the TIF. We're the overseers and the trustees, so that's very simple. But we're getting ready to start right now. In a few minutes, we're going to have our consultant explain soup to nuts for what TIFs are. So you can kind of get an idea. I mean, I can do it, but I'm going to let her do it. She's been doing it long before I even thought about trying. I mean, I learned from her.
Okay.
So, you know, I've been a trustee. I was a trustee for 11 years prior, but that's why, you know, I've asked her to come out, and she does consult for the village and under P.L.A.N. McKenna. So Mary Thompson is going to, as soon as we get through with questions and answers, she's going to explain it. That's what the presentation is for.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Okay.
May I say something? You do not have to give your address, just your name.
Oh, okay. I mean, you know, in
No,
the
at one time
village,
you
you have to do
but
that.
now just your name.
Okay.
Thank you. Bernadine Hopkins, a Sauk Village resident. I have 3 areas of questions. One, excuse me, just a brief detail regarding the loan for village vehicles. I saw that on the agenda, and basically, I kind of just wanted to know a little bit about what it was about. Okay. Let me see, what is the job description of a deputy clerk? I'm sorry, I said it wrong. And is this position salaried? The next area would be code enforcement, because I got an issue with them too. But what I'd like to know is, are code enforcement officers allowed on private property? And I mean like in your backyard, you know, on the roof and so on and so forth. And basically, what are their limitations? The other thing is, what proofs are presented to verify, you know, the validity of a citation or whatever that the code enforcement has, quote unquote, issued. Let me think what else. I needed to know, is there any way publicly, that is, where a resident could find out what areas were being cited for what, or not areas, but properties, meaning, I guess I'm trying to say, I don't understand why I'm going to get a citation for a tree and it's another tree next door and they didn't, but how would you know? You know, how would you know? You understand what I'm trying to say if you don't?
Not really.
Well, what I'm saying is, I want to know the criteria for issuing citations. You're talking about taking money out of my pocket. So I would like to know if a person or one of your code enforcement people can just come by and decide they don't like me and want to give me a citation. And what proof do they have to present to do that? So the other thing, I wanted to know, and this is off of that subject, why do the, like when you have, I guess is that, I don't know what you call that meeting, but where you have the fire department, police, and all of them, they're here. Why is it that when it comes to public comments, they leave? You know, before, you know, when public comments come up, they're gone. So when do we get the opportunity to talk to them, per se? And that concludes it.
Okay. Answer to your first question, you said code enforcement, are they allowed on private property? If they can see something, they can ticket it. They're not allowed to go in your backyard and things of that nature. No, you're not allowed to walk on your private property to issue a ticket. You said issue tickets with the requirement of a citation. What do you mean by requirement? I mean, we do have a code book, And there are a bunch of codes that we have that we adhere to, that the residents adhere to in the village. And if you don't have a copy of that, you can always come up to the village and get a copy of the code. There's a lot of different codes, so I can't really intelligently answer what it is. You said something about a tree. I don't know what you mean by, you know, if someone has a tree next door, and I didn't understand that, but I mean, your code it may be something that your tree is doing. If your tree is hindering people from walking down the street or something like that, then yes, that's a violation. So I don't know what you mean by the tree in that respect. And your last one was that.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes.
I wanted to know why when you have that other meeting where the fire department and all.
Oh, you mean when they have our board meeting, second and fourth?
They use it for public comments.
No, we have public comments first. They leave right after their reports. Public comments are first. And that's the reason why they're there, because you know they used to didn't come. So after they give their report, then there's no need for them to stay. Public comments are always first on the agenda. So.
Okay, now the deputy, I'm sorry,
Oh, you're talking about these, okay.
the
bank loan vehicles, that's what they are. It's a bank loan. We're trying to purchase 3 police vehicles. And the deputy clerk position, what do you mean as far as, it's up to the clerk herself to pick her own deputy.
Well, I did ask what are the duties.
Whatever the clerk asks her to do, other than something that's not part of the clerk's position. That's, you know, but we're not going to go back and forth as we said, that's not a debate. On the salary, free. You want to know the salary of the deputy clerk? Free.
I don't know what to say. If I say something, you say I'm debating.
No. I'm asking, you said that you wanted, the clerk asked me, you wanted to know the salary of the deputy clerk. It's free, no salary. It's a volunteer position. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heidi Parker, Sauk Village. My question concerns public comments. It used to be that at the committee meeting, the comments were at the end, so the audience could ask questions of what was discussed in the meeting. Then they could again. I wonder why that has been changed.
Okay, the meeting, the board meeting was the second and fourth Tuesday. Opt to make the public comment at the beginning, just for what the young lady was stating. If you needed to ask ask a question that would be an answer for one of the department heads, they would be here to either answer them or comment on that. That's why that is at the beginning. And then here, I mean, she just got through asking questions about what's on here. Now, if it's something that you have a question about, I'm sure there's a lot of people that we stick around after it's over with. But I try to not prolong, as I said, the meeting and have the questions asked at the beginning. And then you do have the presenters. You can ask those questions, and when the presenters come and when we discuss it, I'm pretty sure we could hopefully will be able to answer your question.
If I may respond, if there's a discussion on items during the committee meeting, there should be a space for questions at the end if you have questions about what was discussed, not necessarily about a mood or to express your opinion, but to clarify things. So I think it would be a good idea to have the comments in the committee meeting at the end.
Thank you. Yes.
Judy Castier. I was going to ask the same question that Heidi did as to, I've been gone for 6 weeks, but when did this change that the comments from the public are first for this meeting when they've always been last? And for the same reasons that whatever you discuss here, I don't know anything about TIF. I'm gonna learn tonight. So if I have questions, now I either have to wait until after the meeting and maybe wait in line while other people want to ask you 1,000 other questions. To me, that's, forget it, I'm not gonna wait. So I think the question at the end for this meeting is appropriate so that we can ask the questions right up front like we're asking right now, and that would eliminate 6 other people asking the same question if we could hear the answers all together. Secondly, I wanted to say something about code enforcement. I've had things brought to my attention, I've discussed them with some people, and I need some answers. One of them is a lady that does not live in Sauk Village, came here to do a service for a resident. While parked for 2 hours to do the service that she came for, she went out to her car and she had a ticket because she parked on the street on garbage day. Now, I understand that. I've lived in the village for over 50 years, and I understand that rule. But after it was brought to my attention, I drove around. There is a sign going into Deer Creek. I don't know where the hell there's any more signs that say do not park here on a certain day. And the sign going into Deer Creek does not say don't park here on this, that, or the other day. It just says no parking on garbage day. Well, I've lived here for 50 years, and I'm telling you, I've been to your house many times. I have no idea when the hell your garbage day is. How would anybody know, let alone an outsider? How do we give tickets to people that don't know how to follow that rule?
1 minute.
So, the court case is coming up soon for the lady, and I told her I would be glad to be there, and I'm gonna argue it with her. I may have to call you for bond, but I am gonna argue it because there is nothing on our streets saying, I get my garbage picked up on Friday morning. There is nothing on my street that says no parking on Friday morning or Fridays. So if you come to my house, any of you come to my house, you probably didn't know I get my garbage picked up on Friday. But you would get a ticket, whether you live here in the town or not. And I think we have a lot of ordinances that need to be looked at closely for issues like that. And that's all I have.
Okay. Judy, in answer to that, because you're absolutely right. You did inquire about that, and when you did that, I did go out and I drove around. And coming into Cat's Corner, 23rd Street, going west, there's a sign right there that says no parking on garbage day. In some of the areas, it's not on every street, and you're absolutely right, it's not. But if you have a person that's a guest in your house, or came there for whatever reason, and they're parked on garbage day, the person that owns that house or whatever knows that's garbage day. They know if they've been there any day after garbage day that there's no parking and that they would get a ticket. For them not to tell that person that's out there that you should move your car is basically saying that, you know, I don't care if you get a ticket or not. But you're absolutely right. There's nothing on the sign that says garbage day is such and such a day. No, it's not. But there are signs out there in strategic locations, and I may ask to have those increased, but I did see signs in different locations throughout the village that says no parking on garbage day. But it's impossible to put down what day it is because of the holidays. And if the holiday falls on garbage day, we all know that the next day is garbage day. So if we say no parking on Friday, and you park on Monday or whatever, and that's the following day that you can get your garbage picked up, you will get a ticket. But I would think that whoever, if you come to somebody's house and they know that they give tickets out on garbage day, it would behoove them, they should tell you they don't park your car there. because you will get a ticket. But I am going to ask that we increase the garbage day signs. I do, like I said, there are in areas where you enter, but they're not on every street. So that much I do know. But it's unfortunate that the person who, if someone comes to your house and they don't tell you that, you know, you don't live out there, no, you wouldn't know when garbage day is, but they should because of their house. So, but I will actually try to get some more signs put out so they can have something going down each street.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Board. My name is Paulette Meeks, and I just have several observations and comments I would like to address. First of all, I probably should do this when like P.L.A.N and those guys are here, but anyway, I want to take this opportunity to thank Popeyes for their generous donation to St. James Playhouse for their lunch for the beginning of our stage setup on Sunday, October 1st. Also, a big thanks to those of you who have purchased tickets or have placed an ad in our playbook for this year. Thank you very much. Tickets are still available. And upon visiting the various businesses and talking to various residents in Sauk Village, thanks to Playhouse, it was brought to my attention that, now that the elected officials are in office, we have not seen them. Nor do the businesses or even the residents know what is happening in our town. I have asked several of them. For example, do you know that we're having a Veterans Day celebration? We have that almost every year. No. Do you know we're having coffee with the cop? No. So I think it would be really a great idea for you guys, they probably know the mayor definitely, but as trustees, to drop in on the businesses and say hi. Maybe drop off some flyers that we're having a Veterans Day celebration. Maybe we should have dropped off flyers that we're having coffee with the cop. You know what? We're not Chicago, we don't have a million stores here. You know, I just really think it would be a good idea for them to know who you guys are. It's the little things like this that are going to keep and attract the businesses in Sauk Village. You know, we all need to take ownership of this. Not everybody comes to the board meetings or utilizes the internet to find out information. So we should also be utilizing the library and them using us. So I think we should just let everybody know what's going on in our town. Also, Chief Kowalski mentioned last week about selling shirts for the K-9 unit. We bought ours, and they are awesome.
Thank you, Lester.
You have less than a minute.
I want to know how many of you have gone over to the police department and purchased your shirts, whether for yourself or for somebody else to support the K-9 unit. Do the people in Sauk Village even know about this? How do they know about it? I mean, we can put it on the website and do an email blast, but again, our seniors aren't going to do that, look at that. Earlier, I also mentioned Coffee with the Cop scheduled for Wednesday, October 4th. Nobody knows about this. And why is it only a yearly event? I think monthly would be a good idea. This way, businesses, residents get to know our cops. They can address any issues or concerns. Also, it seems that meetings and events are continuously being scheduled in the senior center without anybody's knowledge. For example, the Coffee with a Cop. We do have ceramics tomorrow. It's not a big deal. We have a council as well as an appointed trustee. So am I done?
Now, let me see if I can try to get some of this. As far as informing the different businesses, we only have one marquee, and I'm sure we tried to get things put out there, but we put things out in the stores and they disappear. Nothing we can do about that, but we and the trustees just heard you, and so I'm sure that they'll step that up to try to make sure that they get the proper information disseminated. As far as going to the businesses, again, I patronize them, so I can't tell another person what to do. I can just suggest this just as you did. Also, with Coffee with a Cop, you saying that because this is something that I, don't understand. I mean, it's something that is going to be doing today. It's going to be, the senior center is already going to be open. So all you're going to do is have a police officer there with maybe another officer or whatever, talking to whoever may come in. So I didn't think it would be a problem with informing anyone that they're going to have that. It behooves, which it is up on the marquee, with coffee with a cop and where it's going to be. But you were stating that it should be something that should be disseminated to.
To everybody.
No.
Put out flyers that we have.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Do it a monthly. You know who's going to be there tomorrow for coffee with the cop? Mr. Ramos.
Ceramics is going to be
That's
there.
it.
And
That's it.
Yeah, I know they're there, and yeah, they're there every
So
Wednesday.
that's why I said, who else knew about it? When I was telling people about it, I was like, oh, we didn't know about it.
Okay, well then, some people know.
So unless you come to these meetings,
Okay, well,
nobody knows about this, so.
point well
So
taken.
yet they're gonna have coffee with the cop. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, well, and we're gonna see how it hits off, and then from that point on, yes.
Right.
That should be something that should be done regularly, on a
But
regular.
like you said, they're gonna see how it goes, but in the meantime, it's not gonna, to me, be successful, because they're not gonna get the audience, because nobody knows about it. So they really need to get the word out there. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. All right, any more questions? Okay, at this time, we're going to, well, what I'm going to do is ask Miss Mary Thompson. She is the consultant and vice president of P.L.A.N. McKenna. As I stated before, she's the one. P.L.A.N. McKenna has been with us for a while. They're a financial group that helps us out with our TIF, has been doing it since I've been a trustee. And she is going to try to explain to you what it is the first. Now, I'll tell you this is the first time I've ever seen a slide presentation for TIF, so this will be something new for me. I've never seen a slide presentation. So, and then afterwards, if the trustees have any questions, I'm sure she'll take some, but we're not going to, but right now, I'll turn it over to Mary Thompson.
Mayor, trustees, thank you very much for having me here this evening. Hopefully we can get through this. I did this a little bit in two parts, if you will. A little explanation of TIF, and in particular, explanation about Sauk Village's TIFs. P.L.A.N. McKenna has been... Take it out. Okay, so, P.L.A.N., can you hear me now? P.L.A.N. McKenna has been the Village's TIF consultant since 1994. I personally have not been the TIF consultant since 1994. But Mayor Burgess and I have worked together for a long time. So we're going to get started with a little bit of an overview about TIF. So what is it? When is it the right tool? What makes an area eligible for TIF designation? What is the process to implement the TIF? And the financing. What are the options for financing? So what is a TIF? TIF is an incentive that was created in 1978 to assist communities in implementing sound economic development. I'm not going to read these slides for you. You can read them. But it is the only powerful incentive that we have to offer businesses. It is a municipal tool. It is, the municipality governs the TIF with respect to the area, with respect to the development, with respect to the financing. So what can it be used for? TIF can be used to acquire property, to do site preparation, infrastructure, and to pay soft costs, like your TIF consultant, and engineers, etc. So it is a very useful tool. How does it work? Oh, geez. So, so TIF coordinates with the village's comprehensive plan or their zoning ordinance. So there are specific objectives, specific strategies, and you can create a TIF to have an end goal of a certain product. And this village has 3 current TIFs. TIF 2, which you would probably know as Pace Center. TIF 3, which you would probably know as Logistics Center. And TIF 4, which is our Sauk Trail TIF, right along Sauk Trail, from Torrance to Jeffrey. Is that the name of that street?
Sure.
Jeffrey. So when is it the right tool and what makes an area eligible for TIF? So it's the right tool when you have an area that is floundering, that you want certain development. You have a zoning ordinance that says this area should be light manufacturing, this area should be commercial, and these are practices that you have implemented, but nobody's coming. So you can utilize this as an incentive for businesses to come. Sorry, I'm not used to this one. So as I just said, it's used to induce industrial projects, induce commercial projects, induce residential, but not as often anymore, in particular in mixed-use projects. What we call mixed-use projects are where you've probably seen retail on the lower level and residential on the upper levels. Yes. So the biggest thing with TIF, both from the developer standpoint and from the area standpoint, is what we call but-for. And I will tell you, I think that a lot of you have done Class 8s here. We've done Class 8s. And other incentives, some sales tax incentives, I believe, on occasion. All of the incentives that you utilize are but-for. What does that mean? But for the incentive, the project is not going to go forward. Or the project is not going to go forward in the way the village would like it to go forward. Because there's a gap. There's a financial gap. So this is why you utilize these types of incentives. The process for implementing a TIF. You determine the area that's to be studied. You can adopt a feasibility resolution to determine that you want to have a specific area studied, and you qualify the area. Approved, blighted, vacant. TIF 2 and 3 were qualified as blighted, vacant, because at the time, that is exactly what they were. TIF 3 was over 400 acres when we first did the TIF. TIF 2 was about 250. Mm-hmm. So under the current TIF Act, the entire TIF designation process takes about 4 to 6 months. And that's designated and implemented and applied because of the TIF Act itself. There are certain steps that have to be taken, and there are notices that have to be sent out, and so that requires the amount of time that it takes. Well, that was redundant. So the first thing we do is we look at the area. Come back to the village and say, this is the area that we have in mind, that you have in mind. We've looked at an even larger area and say that this area could work. Or we can't qualify a specific area that you want, so we've lessened it. And so this is what we do. We tell them how it qualifies, why we can qualify it. Do you want to go forward? This is what we did in particular with TIF 3 and TIF 2 and TIF 4. There are numerous, again, public notices. So the first thing we do is we get the documents on file. Every TIF has a TIF plan and a TIF eligibility report. The TIF plan follows the village's comprehensive plan. The eligibility report is exactly what it is. So one of the steps that we have to have is what we call a joint review board, where the local taxing districts are invited to attend. So we have documents on file with the clerk, and for a minimum of 14 days, we send out the notices to the taxing districts, and we hold a joint review board meeting. We explain the project, we explain how we qualified the area, and we ask them to make a recommendation. They serve as an advisory board to the village and to the TIF, and their role is, in fact, to see that we have met the TIF criteria. Again, there's a public meeting to review the TIF concept as well. So part of the TIF process is to have a public hearing. Notices are sent out to the taxpayers of record within the TIF. A letter is sent out to residents that are within 750 feet of the TIF boundaries, all again in accordance with the Act. Assuming we go through all of that, the village will adopt three sets of ordinances to approve the TIF. This is all images. So financing options. How are the TIFs funded? The basic concept of a TIF is either what we call pay-as-you-go or upfront money. TIF 2 and 3 had a little of each. We have bonds in TIF 3, we had some pay-as-you-go in TIF 2, and we have parity bonds that run for 2 and 3. So this is what happens. A TIF is established and the base equalized assessed valuation is frozen. What does that mean? That does not mean that those taxpayers don't get a tax bill. It doesn't mean that their tax bill doesn't go up. It means let's just use some silly numbers, okay? Let's say that their tax bill right now is $10,000 and they build a building there. And now their tax bill is $20,000. That additional $10,000 is the increment. So the base $10,000 continues to go proportionately to all of those school districts. The increase of the $10,000 comes into a special tax allocation fund to be used within that TIF district for TIF eligible costs. Those TIF eligible costs are in accordance with the Act. So the big bucket represents the base EAV. So that's where all of that base, those $10,000 goes. And then the smaller bucket is where the increment goes. So they're restricted funds. This is a pro forma, and I'm not going to go through it. It just kind of shows you what we mean by the base EAV and where the increment can go. So here again, Sauk Village has these TIF districts. Currently 3, 2, 3, and 4, which is Surrey Brook. Sauk Village's TIF 1, Sauk Plaza, was terminated in 2012. It had expended its 23 years and it was terminated. That's the reason why. TIF 1 was created in 1988, terminated in 2012. TIF 2 in 1988 will expire in 2023. TIF 3 created in 1993 and will expire in 2028. Well, how come TIF 2 isn't expiring in the same time as TIF 1? The village went to the legislature for a special extension, and the legislature will, under certain circumstances, extend a TIF for an additional 12 years. We had quite a row with TIF number 3, I'm sure the village would agree. The TIF was created in 1993 because a developer was coming in, Canadian National Rail. It was going to be a huge intermodal facility. Canadian National decided at the last minute that they weren't going to come to Sauk Village. But the village had already created the TIF, and they already extended the bonds to acquire the land. So Now what? Now we have bonds outstanding and we have no project. So initially there was some scurrying to get something in there. That's where you see Wayne Steel. The developer did bring Wayne Steel in. And of course, then we get some more projects in TIF 2. These TIFs touch, so money flows back and forth because they are contiguous. So that's some of your history right there. The bonds for the TIF are what we call TIF alternate revenue bonds. Now that $10,000 of increment that I told you about, coming back into a special fund, the incremental funds that come to TIF 2 and 3 go to a trustee, and they go to the trustee to pay debt service first and foremost. These are the bonds that are extended for TIF 2 and 3, and the balances and when they will be paid. The TIFs are, TIF 2 and 3 are self-supporting TIFs. No money comes from the residents of the town for these TIFs. The projects within that TIF generate enough money to pay debt service plus 1.25 coverage, which we have to do because this village is a non-home rule community, and then some. So they have become extremely successful TIFs. Oh my gosh. I thought this was going to be better. This is from Amalgamated Bank. We have a trustee that takes the increment. The county sends the money from TIF 2 and TIF 3 directly to Amalgamated Bank, the trustee. So this is just what I said, 1.25 coverage. So if the debt service is $1 million, we have to have another 25.25% there. Flows in and out. That's the waterfall, and you can't really see it, and I'm sorry you can't. Because what happens is, after the 1.25 coverage, we have this waterfall. The ordinances, the bond ordinances say, after that, we need to make sure the reserve redemption account is full to the extent that the ordinances command. And it's $3.something million. And $3.6 million. Then after that, and our reserve redemption account has been full for all of the years that we've had the bonds extended. After that, there's an administrative account of maximum of $250,000 that flows to the village to be utilized within the TIF for TIF eligible costs. And if there's money after that, it goes down into what we call the general fund. And that is to be split 90-10 with the developer, the main developer of TIF 3. And I believe you were involved in some of that, weren't you, Mayor Burgess? Because it used to be 150, and we negotiated to get more. And that's it. Questions? Did I help or confuse you?
Okay, trustees, you have any questions?
Excuse me?
They will be making copies for each.
Any questions in regard, I mean, we asked her, I hope, she's seen, well, she did explain it very, very plain. So I mean, so I just wanted to know if there are any questions. She's here now, so any trustee has any questions for her?
Question?
Sure.
In creating a new TIF, and just like how the other one fell through with CNN,
Yes.
at what loss does that come to the village?
You know, I have to tell you that that particular process was unusual. Usually a municipality has an idea of what they want to go after, and the TIF is created, and you have a developer maybe not of the magnitude of a CNN. And candidly, in 1994, when those bonds were first issued, that was unusual. I mean, it was usual, I meant to say. It was practiced more. Now, the idea of upfront bonds for a project is a little more difficult. You know, and I don't want anybody to think that a developer comes in here and we give them the sun and the moon. That isn't how this works. They have to prove that they have a gap in financing. That developer put over $112 million in Sauk Village TIF 3. All of those roads, all of that infrastructure, they put that in. Yes, we helped them with the TIF money and the bonds, but not to the extent that they put in. It's a public-private partnership, and that's kind of what you want to achieve. It didn't wind up costing the village anything, but it could have. There's no doubt about it. It could have. The village was very, very rabid about making sure that no one in this village was going to pay for those bonds. They put a committee together, they put out RFPs, they interviewed developers after developers, and we were part of that. We all worked together to formulate the questions, what their backgrounds were, what their experience was, and we wound up with a very experienced developer, DP Partners. We got it down to 2, and they built a spec building, which is also unusual. 750,000 square foot spec building, first building way in the back. And from there, everything else came. You just had another 500,000 square foot added to Winpan. I mean, it's a beautiful park. Turned out beautiful.
Yes, it did.
Thank God.
Sure.
Did I answer your question, trustee?
Yes.
Jill?
They can't hear you.
I haven't said anything. During your slide presentation, you indicated that these are criteria that you need to create the TIF. But suppose you have a redevelopment plan that you want to use, are the same criteria used in order to redevelop something in that particular TIF? Or is the criteria different? I mean, do they have
The Act states what criteria you can use and can have with respect to creation of a TIF. So in a conservation area, what you have to have for a conservation area is that 50% of your buildings have to be at least 35 years of age or older. And then after that, you have to have 3 additional criteria: deterioration, obsolescence, lack of community planning, deleterious layout, and a few others. There is a total of 13. Those are the most common. Obsolescence and deterioration usually is what you
That's
have.
for creating, but how do you, is there a different set of criteria used, like if a developer comes in and say, I want to approve a particular TIF, is there different criteria, or do we use the same 13?
If the developer comes in and says what?
They want to improve the particular TIF, you know, do something to improve
In the
it?
TIF?
Yeah, so is there a different set of criteria that they have to follow, or
Well, what they
for
have
the development plan?
Well,
Yeah.
they come in like any normal development would come in. They have to follow all of the rules and regulations that normally occur with a development project within the village. Then what they say is, this is what I'm willing to do, and I'm pulling, these are fun numbers. I mean, nothing real here. So a developer says, I want to build a 5,000 or a 500,000 square foot building. It's going to cost me $4 million. I'm going to create X number of jobs. I'm going to build the road and the sidewalk and da-da. And this is going to cost over $20 million. I don't have all of that funding. I need some assistance from the village. I understand you have a TIF. The village board generally contacts someone like us to do what we call a gap analysis. So we're going to take all of those numbers, and we are a very conservative company. So I mean, we're going to plow through any smoke and mirrors that they may have. and then advise, this is good, yes, they have a gap, they don't have that much of a gap. So I mean, you have to kind of go through the project with a fine-tooth comb, and it becomes a negotiation. Developers enter into a redevelopment agreement with a village because, well, it's one of the same reasons that the money goes to a trustee. We change here. There are elections here. So if I have a development agreement because I built something and I'm going to get money back every year from my taxes that I paid, increment, pay as you go, it has to transcend administrations. Something has to be in place that I'm going to get that money.
Well, my second question is, in TIF 4, I understand that we have a municipal bond for that. We don't have like a regular bond. Is that different?
We don't have any bonds in
We
TIF 4.
don't have any bonds in TIF 4?
No bonds for TIF 4. Money comes in from TIF 4 through the property taxes into a special tax allocation fund, restricted, to be used within that TIF district for TIF eligible costs.
Anyone else? Mary, as always, you've done a yeoman's job. Thank you so very much. And it's a good experience for everyone to see. And as the clerk said, they have slides, so we'll be able to.
Well, it's a difficult process, and you know it is a difficult process. And it's difficult to explain it in 15 minutes. So the village knows how to get a hold of me, and if anybody ever has any questions.
Thank you so much.
It's just you to come out.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, item number 6. That's the bank loan. We have talked about this before. Come to find out from the bank, as most of you know, institutions, financial institutions, seem to want everything spelled out for them. I'll take these and pass them down. This is a resolution that we're going to have. This is just a resolution that was. Somebody want to come? Okay, I'll come here. I was hoping somebody would come pick this up. That's okay. It's 3. You have 2, you. Okay. That's what we're going to be voting on next week. They wanted a more concise, even say how much, terms, annual payment. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what it is that we're going to be voting on next week so you can kind of look it over. But the real one will be available to you hopefully by the end of the week. That's going to be drawn up with the lawyers to make sure that all this that's in here is done correctly. So it's just wanted to let you know why and what it is that they wanted to put in the actual resolution. So I just had that made up. So, any questions? Yes.
Did we have to put the $100,000 into their bank accounts?
Yes, we voted on that to take that particular loan, which would lower our interest rate. So that's, I'm thinking that'll be also in that resolution. I'm not sure, but I will find out. But yes, that's because the interest rate is at 4.2.
So how long do we have to leave it under there?
Well, the money is going to, the length of the loan, basically. But we have accounts that we don't touch anyway, so that we cannot touch.
So $100,000 being in 5 years.
Well, it won't be that particular one, but yes, it'll be $100,000 every 5 years. Any other questions? Okay. Moving down, Trustee Tate. Need the mic down there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier, within the last couple of weeks, we had a discussion about the new village seal. And what happened, there were several samples that were given of the Sauk village seal. And recently, I took a ride around to look at what's on our buildings, and particularly what's on our stationery, and it was kind of interesting. If you've ever seen a village envelope, this is what you'll see on it. Now, this has been the village seal, I guess, forever. But the thing is that we did not, even though I liked some of the new seals that were proposed, I really did. But then the thought came, we did not want the residents to get confused when they see this, and then when they see the new village seal. And they said, what is Sauk Village doing? So what we did, we cleaned up this document. And when I say cleaned it up, it's blurry, it's murky. It's not as neat as what we finally came up with, which is this. It's the same thing that's on the envelope, but it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot crisper, and you can read it. So we were going to go to perhaps the new village seal to put on the resident handbook, but since we see on our signs entering Sauk Village, particularly on Torrance, when you enter Sauk Village, you see this. You don't see the new village, well, you wouldn't see the new village seal. But this is what you see on the sign entering Sauk Village. So we decided that we were going to keep it as is for the purposes of not confusing residents about saying they have a new seal, what are they going to put that on, why don't we have, just a lot of questions being raised. So we decided to clean this up and to keep this. And that's what it looked like, a cleaned up version. That's what it looks like. So we decided to keep that instead of going to the new village seal, which there were 4 examples, I think. There were 4 examples that we looked at and talked about and said, I like this one, I don't like that one, and that type of thing. Instead of going down that road and confusing residents about why we're changing the village seal, we decided to stick with what we have, a cleaned up version on the resident manual that we're developing. And so that's when we come to the conversation of the new village seal versus what's old. So, and I'm kind of talking fast, so I will entertain questions on the way of why we're doing that and why we did that. So let's talk about.
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in and ask. The lady just was in the committee meeting that I missed a few weeks ago. When were we talking about new village seal? I missed that conversation somewhere.
That was not in a conversation in committee. That was something that was done during the week. That there were samples of the village seal that were produced and presented to Clerk Campbell Pruitt. So that's when that came up. That did not come up during the committee meeting.
So did any of us, I didn't even know we were thinking about a new village seal.
Okay, what we were doing, we were thinking about putting something on the cover of the Sauk Village Resident Manual. And I think that's how the question of the village seal, new village seal, came up. Because we were talking about putting it on the resident manual. But we decided not to do that. Don't forget, that's how it looked before. Thanks for having this in front of me. That's how it looked before. So instead of doing that, then the conversation became, do we need a new village seal, and what does it need to look like? That is correct. That we're talking about the logo.
And
Yes, it was a contest in 2000.
Early 2000?
No, it was 2006, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
It was a contest because every year we used to do our how can I put it? Our stickers. And this particular person had this. He was an artist. And instead of putting that on the stickers, they actually asked to have that put as as our logo for the village. Because it looked too good for them to just put that on the sticker, so they wanted to get something permanent.
It's not as old as I thought.
No.
No, not at all. And actually, I didn't realize you guys thought it needed cleaning up. I didn't personally see anything wrong with it. I use it for, you know, like if you go out and look at my committee agenda for tomorrow, I have it at the top of my agenda, it's on my meeting minutes, and I didn't think it looked.
Well, you have a better version than I had. Okay.
Happy
But
to
it's,
share it.
yeah, yeah. Well, still, we were, and I agree with you about the, this being different
Yeah, I
than
can move this up
that.
so you can see, you know,
Right.
it's normally smaller.
Okay.
But
Unfortunately, nobody else can see it. I said, unfortunately, what you're talking about, nobody else can see it. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
you all talking about something nobody.
We're talking about something that no one else can see. But anyway, that's what we decided to do. Now, what I may do, in fact, is maybe instead of this one for the resident handbook, we can use the cleaned up version that you have. If you can print that out for me or send that to me, and we can use that, and that resolves the whole issue right there. Yes. It'll be what was on the handbook originally was the seal. Okay, and then we start talking about the logo, which appears on the envelopes that I just showed you.
So what are we putting on the handbook?
We're gonna put the logo. And if you remember the seal, a version of the seal, I guess I could say a version of the seal is on the old resident handbook, but what came out was just the headdress of the Indian, and the Indian practically had no face, but the headdress came out on the old one. So we just wanted to clean that up. And I can share this, the seal and how it looks, whatever that's worth. Any other questions?
So you're saying that we're gonna put the logo on the handbook?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's go, let's start talking about the resident handbook. The price that I had quoted for printing was $3.74 and some cents to get that reproduced. And I found through recommendations of two village residents, Mr. and Mrs. Meeks, who are hiding in the back, they shared their information with us. And that's the thing about being in a group setting, that people know things that you don't know, but then they'll bring it up. They say, oh yeah, by the way, I know of A, B, and C, and it helps you out. So that's what they did. The Meeks, they shared Land's Printing. Land's Printing, we were doing 100 copies for $3.74 and some cents with Minuteman. Land's Printing has given us a price of $300 even for 100 copies of the resident handbook. And I realized that Trustee Todd said that the resident handbook as we had designed it looks like a calendar, which I never understood because there are no months, there's no dates on it. I don't know why it looked like a calendar.
A calendar goes like this. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. So she meant because it opens up top to bottom instead of on the side version. So that was done in landscape. Okay, and if it opens up as a book, normally does, opens up from the right to left, that's portrait. Now, Trustee Todd also did explain, and I had no idea until I verified it later, that you get more print when you do portrait. You get more print, which means we can reduce the number of pages that we have, which I'm interested in, which means it costs less. So when we did this in portrait, there was more print per page. The pages were reduced, thus our overall cost was reduced to $300. Now, if we need additional copies past the first 100, they will reprint for $175 for reprinting should we get past that. But we may be able to do some of that ourselves, even though we found it's very expensive, even using our color copier here in Village Hall, and getting the materials that we need. And then you have the instance of labor. Who's going to do it? Who's going to make these booklets? And that becomes a different issue. But we found that Land's Printing was the best deal for us. The 100 copies, $300. They will print those up for us, and I can go. I have no problems in handing this around. You can pass that around and take a look at it while we're here. The only thing that's going to have to be changed are the page numbers, because things are not lined up. The page numbers have to be changed, but that's some of the same information that you saw in this version, except it was just done to look a little bit more professional, the way that it's being done. Forget the Indian on the front cover of it, but the materials are the same that's in there. It even includes the trustees and their committees, but that was included in this also. So the information is there for each resident or interested person to take a look at and to familiarize themselves with as much about Sauk Village as they can. There's even a page, as was in here, I think, of history, that a new resident who moves into Sauk Village can get some history about how Sauk Village came about being and that type of thing. So what I would like for the 10th, which is the board meeting, is to, in the meantime, take this to the printer and have the printer on standby for us. I would like to have a motion on the 10th to approve the resident handbook being reproduced at 100 copies for $300, which is $74 and some cents cheaper than what we were going to do it by going through Minutemen, and it was going to be a lot cheaper if we found someone to do it and did the manual labor. We would have to go out and purchase everything from Staples, bring it back to Village Hall, and have someone who I don't know to reproduce the document. This way, it's one-stop shopping. We put our order in, they print these things up, we pick them up, we bring them back, and then we can have them at the front counter where the old resident handbooks are kept. And then as a resident moves in, or rather if you lose your book, you can still come to the front counter and say, may I have a copy of the resident handbook? And then you get the book. So for the next meeting, I would like on the agenda, the approval for P.L.A.N's printing of 100 copies for $300.
Question,
Question.
where is this in the budget?
I don't have my budget with me. I'm sorry, I don't have.
It falls under your, I guess you would have to put it under your part for your committee. So that's the only way I would see that it would come from.
Oh, from the $1,000 that was,
Yes. Yes.
okay, and that's fine. It will come from our committee.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, do we know, on average, how many residents come in and, establish new water accounts?
They come in and do what?
Establish a new water account. They're new residents in the village.
They come in and establish new water accounts?
Because this is for new residents.
Yes, we get a lot to come in because we have a lot of turnover, so you have a lot of transients that come in and out.
I just want to know how quick this 100 copies will, how fast will it go?
Oh, I'm not sure on that. I mean,
Well, the other thing I'd like to mention too is our existing resident handbook is also on our website. So I would expect that this one would replace that. And so in addition to people coming in and picking it up at the counter, we can also say, this is on the website too, if you don't want to take a hard copy with you, trying to save on some of the.
well, then we can, if that's the case, then what we can do is ask them if they have capability of getting to the website and let them know where it's at, and if they don't, then we can give them a book. So, any other questions?
Now, what's on the website now is, what's on the website now is one of the drafts is 2 years old. One of the drafts the committee first started on. That's why when Trustee Todd said some of the same information is there, that's because what's on the website now was a draft, maybe the third or fourth draft, and it was placed on the website without the board approving it, but it was placed on the website anyway. So it's up there. But if the board approves the new resident handbook, I agree with you that it should replace the old handbook, and certainly the hard copies that are up front behind the counter are going to be replaced.
Copy where the front page with the logo on it before the 10th, you're gonna change the front copy, the front page, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna get the front page, it's all really neat.
You want the, okay, do you just want a page
Well, I mean, I'll just say a page, that's all I want.
that's like that?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Oh,
You're gonna change
okay,
it.
yes. Except we're gonna go, okay, Beth, if you could send that to me and we could put it in everybody's inbox so that you'll have a copy of it in color. You'll have copies of that how it's gonna look beforehand, before the 10th.
Okay, so you're asking the board or you're asking the clerk to put this on the agenda for next week to be voted on for the 300 copies at $300 each. And hopefully before that time, you'll have some copy or something that they can see. They can always come up to the village hall after what date? Today's Tuesday. Do you think you'll have something in the village hall by Friday?
I don't think so, because they haven't approved it. I mean,
Okay, so you want, okay.
Once the board approves it, I'm sure the printer could probably get this out within a week or two.
Okay, so you're asking, basically what you want on the agenda is to have this approved.
Approval of the resident handbook with the notation that the $300 is coming out of our fund, our
Come
account.
out of your, yeah. Okay.
Are we able to see a copy of this before it goes to print to make sure that everything's correct? I see like Church of God is still, it needs to be
So
crossroads.
you want a, yes,
To
what I
just
was
prove
asking.
it.
You want a finished copy.
Right, to proof it.
That's what I'm saying, you want a finished copy before that. Okay, well, I'm sure we can print one or two.
Just to look at.
And you don't have to have an approval for that. You can print a couple of them. If I don't know, you're right, they may not, well, can we print one or two here in the village?
I imagine we can.
Okay. Then this way,
Yeah.
I know the printer's not gonna print one or two. No, they're not gonna do that. So, I mean, we can print one or two here with it doesn't have to be in color. It can be in black and white so they can just see the wording. That's what you're asking for. Okay.
Just approve it before you send it off to the printer.
Okay. That shouldn't be a problem.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
All righty. Next, Trustee Todd, orders review and muni codes update.
Okay, the first thing is for the Vicious Dog Act. This was presented to Chief Kowalski to review to make sure that everything's in there that it should be. This is according to the Cook County Animal Control. So, I put it in your box. I don't know if you've had a chance to go through it, because I'd like to see it get passed. It's been quite a while.
I didn't do it. I received the cover. First page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was put in the box. The first page was good because this was put in there, and then the cover I put in there afterward. But this would have been put in your box.
I just had one question.
Sure.
On page 3, under section 10-26, or 10-66, paragraph B, reports references animal control officer on the second line, which we don't have one.
Thank you. Because we've been through this, and I think it keeps popping up. That's what has changed in this, that we no longer have an animal control officer. We'll get that corrected. Thank you, because you know what? I could read this and read it and skip right on by it. So that's what's changed, because now we have the chief of police or his or her designee. So I want to get that changed, but I also want to get this maybe on the agenda to pass it, because I think it's been since last year. Is that right?
Okay, so then you want it to be put on the agenda, which wouldn't be a problem, but is there a way we can have that rewritten and then, again, we can have it disseminated before that time?
Sure.
Because you have the basis right there. So all you're doing is changing a word or two, and that can be easily done and then disseminated to the trustees in their box.
Sure, I'll take care of it tomorrow.
And then, and in the meantime, we could put this on the agenda to be passed at the next board meeting. She has special interest. Okay, is that for that one?
Right, it's just
Okay.
for that. Is that the only thing that anyone saw? Or I'll be in Village Hall probably tomorrow. So if you see something else, let me know.
Okay, you have muni codes update?
Right, this is for the codification because I feel it's extremely necessary for us to codify our ordinances. It has been since 2013. So this is what you have here. It's just, we had this, the village clerk provided it and did the research on it. And I went into Mohan to find out how we could pay for it, because I really think it needs to be done. And Mohan has assured me that there's money that would pay for this. And then it needs to be kept every year. Then it wouldn't be as costly as the $7,000 that you see. It would only be, I think it was
1,700.
1,700. And I just really think it's really important, especially being on the ordinance review. We need to get these codified and up to date.
About 1,500.
Was it 15?
Yeah.
Well, 1,500. I see. Do you want to know how we're going to get the money?
I'm waiting and baiting.
Per Mohan, he will move money from the general administration budget plan items, and then also move money from there's, elected officials have something for printing, and he would move money from that as well to come up with this figure of 7,000.
That's what he had before.
But that's what he's.
Well, I thought maybe he was going to change something.
No, there wasn't, he's going to take
But I'm sure if I go in there, I might find another spot.
Okay.
But that I'd like to see passed. I mean,
It's
this is
something that needs to be done anyway.
And it would not be as costly as if we did it then
Absolutely.
every year.
Okay, that needs to be also put on the agenda, so,
So can I just mention?
sure, questions, yes.
That part of that budget is newsletter money, so we have to be cognizant that we're.
You mean,
Pay for this.
like, Sauk Talk? Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with it. It needs to be done, period. Irregardless, it needs to be done.
Make sure we're all acknowledging there's trade-offs, that's all.
Anytime you deal with the budget and you change things, it's gonna be a trade-off. So Madam Clerk, could you please put this on the agenda to be voted on? With the price tag of $7,600. 76.52, because I'm looking at other things that are on there, so 76.52 plus tax. So, yeah, if applicable. Okay, well then 76.52. I'm trying to make it so where, once you vote it out, that, somebody has to go in their pocket and give a little bit more.
Well, you
What-
have a good point, though, because if you focus, you said, plus tax if applicable, we're tax exempt, so I'm not sure why they would have said that at the beginning.
We'll see. Okay. Is that it, Trustee Todd? Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, you're next.
Thank you, sir. You have come to me repeatedly, or a few times anyway, requesting that I decide on a deputy clerk, because that is something that's within the purview of the village clerk. And so I have come up with a decision of a person. I'm not certain if it has to be voted on or if it's just announced. I know that the person would have to take the oath and be sworn in. So what is your pleasure in terms of what should occur on October the 10th?
Okay, I did ask you about a village clerk deputy because in my stead, something happens quite naturally, the trustees will vote someone in to conduct the meeting. But in your stead, I can look around this room right here and basically no one wants to take notes. Yeah, I may be wrong.
Well, and I actually did offer to do
Oh,
that after I left
okay.
the office, because I take notes anyway.
Okay,
But
But-
that was just for meetings.
right.
If the clerk wasn't available, I said I could,
But she's gonna need, if she wants, but now we have to make sure, I'm not sure of a criteria as far as residential. I have to find that out. I don't know.
If we go by past practice, there was no requirement. The last two deputy clerks that the village had did not reside in the village.
One of them did, one of them didn't. So, I'm not sure, but I don't know. It's been a while. But like I stated, one did, one didn't, so I just wanted to see if there's anything written down in our code or ordinances or anything to that effect. I just want to make sure before we do that, but because after that, then it's just a matter of, like you said, being sworn in.
Correct. So,
And then you would have to, I would like for you to have that person, whoever that person may be that you decide to do that we have an executive session, because it will be a personnel issue. There'll be a person, your executive deputy clerk is a personnel person.
okay, so,
Even though it's free, but if they have access to the building and things, we have to make sure, that's all. It's just a formality, that's all.
okay, so it'll be on for the exec board, and then also with potential action to be taken?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I need to check to make sure the, well, I mean, I know she said, you're right, it's just like grandfather.
That's true.
Past practice.
You know, so I just want to make sure, I don't think it should be a
When
problem.
I look at the Illinois statute, it does not state anything, so if anything, it would have to be in Sauk Village
That's
as
what I said,
well.
local, yeah.
It has to be local because it's not state. I know that because at the state, it has less than a half a sentence. Okay?
Really?
Right. And know that, the deputy clerk's position varies according to municipalities and locations. Some deputy clerks are paid positions, others are not. Others are responsible for major administrative duties throughout the course of your day-to-day operation. So it just varies. So someone had asked what's the criteria. There is really no criteria other than a desire, a willingness, and just the ability to learn. And basically that's it.
I guess, like, what I would ask for next week is for you to list out your expectations of the deputy.
Yes, I would have no problem with doing that, because as I communicate with the person, I would want to be able to communicate that as well, in terms of, responsibilities and all.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
so what's there like background check or everything such? I mean, that's what type of access would the deputy clerk have? Would the deputy clerk have the same access to information the same as you or not?
It would not be as extensive as my access and responsibilities, but I'm certain that the person would not be opposed to a background check if that's something that you want, because the individual will have access to Village Hall.
That's what I was talking about, is that we would have to do that once we look at that.
But we would have to appoint the person first before being able to get a background check.
There's a difference though, right, between access to Village Hall versus things like seeing payroll information on those checks that you sign,
Exactly.
right? And accounts payables, where you're actually seeing some personal information that not everybody should.
Exactly, and as the mayor and I talked, we have the fire room with loads and loads of records in it, that would only be accessed by the village clerk, not the deputy clerk. So, I will.
I think the expectations should lay that out.
Exactly.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, comments from the trustees and mayor? Start with trustee Tate. General comments.
Okay, one thing that the Proactive Community Services unit, who's going to be here on October 12th, there should be flyers in the back. I think this is a chance Sauk Village has to make employment opportunities, educational opportunities available to our residents. So that information is in the back. Bearing in mind that on the 5th of October, those individuals who need to attend a Spanish-only class need to let me know so that I can make arrangements to have someone here that will be able to give you that same information, but in Spanish. So that's, deadline is October 5th. The actual class is October 12th for the Proactive Community Services Group. Also in the back, you'll see a form I put back there for veterans. Veterans Day celebration is 11/11/11, November 11th at 11 a.m. here in the municipal building. On the back, you'll see a form that asks for veterans to be identified ahead of time. That's because we want, if we receive the flags that we plan on purchasing ahead of time. We want them to come to the village board meeting and present those flags so they're already in place. You may not come to the Veterans Day celebration, but at least if you come here to the village board meeting, you'll see the actual flags that are posted, and there'll be individuals who represent the branches of service who will present those. So if you have a veteran, or if you are a veteran and you would like to volunteer for that, there's a form in the back for you to sign up to do that ahead of time. And all that is just presenting the flag and putting it in place for here in Village Hall. As usual, we need volunteers for the Veterans Day program. Clerk Marvel Campbell Pruitt volunteered last week, I think it was, to help out with the Veterans Day celebration. And I think there may be a couple of more people who they have a conflict that's in their schedule right now, but they're trying to work out conflicts. They'll be available for volunteers. But we do need volunteers to hand out materials to make our veterans as comfortable as possible. Is the Trustee Brewer on that date, November 11th? You were going to check with Mr. Farmer last week. Send you a text or email?
I'll send you a reminder, okay? And I'll check it tomorrow, and I'll give you an answer tomorrow.
We cannot keep waiting to the last minute. We're doing planning. So it's timely. It's timely that we get that. Okay. So we still need volunteers. I understand there's someone who volunteered to provide pastries for the veterans. That'd be something great for them to have. If there's anyone in the audience, the state of Illinois now does not provide municipalities with the state flag. So we now have to purchase the state flag. So if there's anyone who's got connections with the state of Illinois, Governor Rauner or somebody that can get state flags for us so we don't have to purchase them. Otherwise, we're going to have to purchase state flags. And we need 3 each, state flags. So if you have connections or you have information how we can get state flags instead of purchasing them, I would appreciate that.
Sorry, you said 3 each or
3.
3? And what size?
3 by 5.
Yeah.
One last thing that we did, in the last month or so, there have been a number of residents who have encountered difficulties, and in Sauk Village we don't have a homeless shelter. So I've worked with the people here in Village Hall to locate places for these people to relocate to, because they're without living accommodations. What I've done, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have, I have a booklet that lists homeless shelters for residents. I'm going to say residents, people who live in Sauk Village who become homeless. And I would like this to be kept at the counter. So if anyone says they're homeless or there's a house fire or there's some tragedy and they need accommodations, at least they can get a telephone number and a location of a place to contact that will assist them. Now, I've already spoken with Nan Wargo at the library. They will be willing to put this document in the library also, so that residents can go to either location, either Village Hall or to the library, and say, well, I'm looking for a shelter, but I need to be in Park Forest or near Park Forest. Their information will be available to them so that they can look for it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get, and I'm not sure if we should have, if I need to have this on the agenda for approval, or if we could.
That's information. I guess.
And then we'll need to have to decide on which employees, if any, I'm not sure how you want to handle
I
that.
mean, if you can just put it and have it, let the employees know that it's available and let them put it where they can handily pull it out so everybody can know where it's at.
So it should just make sure that your neighbors, your relatives, and friends know, and that you know that there's information available at Village Hall on some shelters in case people experience hardships.
Can we put that on the website? That would be something that we should put on the website too. So if you can get a copy.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but we can make copies for the trustees and then also email it to the clerk so she can put it on the website.
You know, it might be a good idea just to add general phone numbers to the handbook. I know you probably got it, you know, but it might be to phone, you know, and general numbers like a helpline or something to the handbook. You know, I see those people guys call helpline and say,
We're not going to keep revising this handbook. We need to get it done. Okay, could be. All right, thank you. And one final thing, Mr. Mayor, and this applies to our elected officials more than anyone else. Our village residents are normally here until the end of the meeting, and they stand around, they stay here and they wait to ask questions of trustees about different issues. And what happened to me the last couple of weeks was the elected officials tended to interrupt the conversations that I was engaged in with the residents. To me, my upbringing, that's rude, it's disrespectful to interrupt conversations of two people. You can say, pardon me, excuse me, or some words like that, and then ask your question and get out of the way. But to interrupt the conversation, to change the subject and get into your long conversation, that causes me some concern. I stick around because residents want to ask questions. And then I want to talk to them and answer the questions if I can. But I'm not standing here for you to come and interrupt the conversations and to carry on second conversations. So I would like to elected officials to be more cognizant of that. Call it protocol, call it respect, call it whatever you want to call it. I would just rather that you not interrupt my conversations when I'm having with the resident because we're probably discussing something that the resident feels that's important and should not be interrupted. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Roger Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment. I think that we should consider moving public comment to the end of the agenda. That way that residents, they don't have to, or they can ask, questions on discussion items. Also, we should think about even moving executive sessions to the end. That way that we are a presenter, they don't have to wait 20, 30 minutes while we are in the back. And they can, just do what they have to do and leave. So in a way that even their residents, if they don't want to stay after discussion items, they don't have to stay. But we do have executive session. If they want to come back, they want to stay until we come back, that's fine as well. Just something to think about.
Sometimes executive session has to do with what's happening on hand. So sometimes the executive session, you may come out and take action. So that's why you kind of put the executive sessions in the front. So maybe in the back we can be a little less long-winded, but we executive sessions are put in that for that reason, just in case we discuss something that we have to come out and vote on it. If we put it at the end, the voting is done already. So for that part right there, but I can understand what you're saying about the public comment. We can do that. I did it at the beginning for second and fourth is because I do have the department heads here. And if they need to ask a question of the department head or ask the question and the department head can answer, that would be, because a lot of people do ask questions about the police, ask questions about public works, ask questions about the fire department. They're here to answer those questions. That's why I had it at the beginning. But I can move the public comment, especially for the first and third, when we do presentations, they can ask the questions, because they may have a question on something that we actually discussed, and go from there. Thank you. Yeah, we can, you don't have to vote on it. You don't have to vote on that. I mean, okay, okay, I was going to tell you, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, because, yeah, you're going to be here tomorrow, right? Okay. Well, when next time you come back, we'll talk about the format. Trustee Zupan.
I just wanted to remind anyone who's interested that the Public Safety Committee meeting is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. here in the Rotunda.
Okay, Trustee Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if we could add the presentation for the senior committee. We have a chairperson now who wants to give an update of what we're doing in the committees now. So can we have that added to the agenda so everybody else gives the report when we add the senior committee chairperson's meeting, presentation? Feel like we do normally doing all the other meetings.
To what other meetings?
Best practices is that the senior committee reports on what they're doing.
Okay, when we have do we have a senior committee?
Yes, we have.
Okay, because I didn't know that I know that you all had talked about it, but I didn't know formally that we had one.
So we have a senior committee.
Okay, is your policy going to be voted on?
That's my next question, to make sure that the policy and procedures are October 10th to be voted on. And also if we add the senior committee presentation to,
You mean the senior committee update?
update presentation. And,
Sure. Sure.
sure.
I said sure.
Not the way Mark's doing something.
Usually we have the senior committee on the agenda already, so are you asking for it to be someplace else as well?
No. If it's on there already, that's fine.
Well, it wasn't because we didn't. It wasn't on there because we didn't have a quote unquote. So could you get those people's names and phone numbers and contact information to me? It's okay.
I'm sorry, but I'm with the clerk on this one. I thought she had it under, after, sorry. It was combined with the,
I'm talking about something different.
No, she's okay. What she's asking for, what Trustee Brewer's asking, that it be a separate senior committee report, and it's not under Trustee Brewer. Because the senior committee is an ad hoc committee, she's just a liaison. So therefore, she's asking for that person, whoever it is, to give a report on the agenda. We have to insert that at a point.
simply pulling it out from under.
Yes, 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 yes.
And also, I'd like to thank Mary Thompson for coming out, because she gave us insight on the test. And there was a lot of wealth of information that we all should be aware of. And I'm quite sure that a lot of us on the board didn't know. And one of my biggest things is I'd like to know, I know you said that trustees are overseeing the tips, but my question is, we don't ever have any financial documents that show what's the balance in the tip, what the tip is, what's going on in the tip. We don't ever get any of that stuff. At least we haven't gotten any, because I haven't. So my question is, do we get that all, at one time? And what time do we get that information, that financial information on?
You can always go and ask Mohan. Don't, I mean, you ask him, but just for a balance of tip 1, I'm sorry, 2, 3, or 4, because they're contiguous. So then that's not, he can get that to you by the end of the day. I just don't like every whatever, and he can't get his work done during the day because he has a lot to do that he has to stop and answer. a whole list, a long laundry list of questions, but something to that effect. And then also you have the finance trustee that's right here, and I'm sure you just said it, so I'm sure he can also get that question. It's not that hard to find out the balance, because the TIF money is only used for TIF expense. We do pay some of the contractors, the engineers, and the consultants for that TIF if it's TIF related. So that's the only really time we spend money out of the TIF. So, but it's not. What do you mean, finance director with TIF for? He monitors all the TIFs. I don't understand what you mean.
Well, the way Mrs. Thompson explained to me is the monitor to the board. Now, she's wrong. I'm just repeating.
I didn't hear that. That he. Oh, well, that's no. The trustees of the TIFs is the village.
So, we should get financial data from TIFs.
Yeah, and I said you can get that. We can get that. You can get that. It's not hard to get. But we just don't put it on a regular basis because the money is only voted out for TIF-related expense. It's not voted out for day-to-day expense. So it's not like we have X amount of money in there. Ooh, let's see if we can use some of that. No. So I mean, it's in there, and if you just need to know how much is in there, fine. But don't think that we got 2 or 3 million in there that we can say, okay, well, we need to take care of this. Yes, that's no problem. And I'm sure the trustee here can, I'm pretty sure the trustee.
And keep in mind too, when things do get paid out, it's on accounts payable.
Yes, well, she wants to balance how much is in there.
Yeah, balances no one can give them, but we're going those expenditures out every time they come up on the accounts payable report. You know, you see them, the line items there for that too.
Okay, okay, I know, I'm just saying, we're here to conduct business. After the meeting's over with, if you guys want to have a sidebar, no problem. But I was trying to answer your question, and I don't know where you got the information that Mohan monitors just TIF 4. Mohan monitors, he's the finance director. So we don't just do 2 and 3 and not 4. He monitors all of them.
Okay, my last comment is that in the senior center, along with Ms. Leaks was talking about that you guys want to use the senior center, and there's a form that all you have to do is come and fill out and let us know, because there are other things that's going on in the senior center, and there's not that much going on, which might want to pick up against somebody else's time, and they might not want you in there, so we would like to
Excuse me. I want to stop, but I want to stop you with that last statement. They might not want you in there. Who makes that determination if you're having something for the village that they might not want you in there?
It's up to you or whoever the chairperson is.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So I don't want.
Or either it be just respectful that
I understand that, but to say that they might not want you in there, but I understand what you're saying, that you need to know in advance. There's no problem with that. That's no problem, because you do have a calendar, and I thought we did tell you, I thought it was conveyed to you about 11/11/11.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was conveyed to you ahead of time, correct?
About any and all additional activity that's coming up.
Well, yes, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, if you have a calendar, yes, they should inform you. Okay, but don't say that they don't want, I'm sure that you didn't mean to say that they don't want you in there. What does that mean? Who can make that determination? I'm not going to go into it, trustee, but nobody can make that determination to say who. I'm not going to go into it, but no one should make that statement. They don't want you in there, because that building is owned by the city. So I'm just saying, so to make that statement doesn't look good to whoever's in charge, or whoever is running, or whoever is doing whatever in the senior center, to make that statement that.
Off the subject,
No, but you made that statement.
That when people want to use the senior center, there's a form they need to fill out.
Okay.
For a specific day.
Okay.
You know, that
Okay.
so that they're in there.
Okay.
There might be a lot of things going on.
Okay.
And you might not want to be in there that particular day when it's going on. So it's always a way, you know, say for instance, they want something like line dance or whatever or something. You know, you might not want to be in there that particular day with all that noise. So, you know, it all depends on that. We should know what's going on in the senior center. Just fill out the form.
And my offhand comment was, I hope that's the same form that's in the policy. And if it's not in the policy, it should.
It's the same form that's in the policy. The policy has not changed for the last 3-4 months.
Is that it?
It's just a matter of this day.
Is that it? Trustee Brew?
And I'll give that to you when Trustee Tatum in the letter.
Okay. Before we go to Trustee Todd, I'll talk to you about, I'd like to see you after the meeting because I'm not going to do this out here. Trustee Todd, please.
I have nothing at this time.
Trustee Jones.
We have the,
Battery probably went out.
we have flyers that will be passed out. We have a few at the moment, but we have flyers that's ready for trunk or treat. That's on the 28th October, starting at noon from Rickover. We did get permission from Rickover, and that's going to be, we got the permission, so we'll be lining up in the parking lot at noon and heading to the community center. First come, first serve. So get there early, get your trunks decorated and everything, so you have a good spot. And we have the committee meeting this Thursday, 7 o'clock here in the Village Hall, Parks and Recreation. We also, in the community center on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock, there's line dancing. So if you would like to stop by and ask for Miss Tina, check her out, a little activity in the evening time for you. And every first Tuesday of the month, if you need any information on anything as far as dealing with cancer, the American Cancer Society is in a community center every first Tuesday. Open to the public, anyone is welcome. Come in for any information that you may need, and it's open for you. That's 6:30 every Tuesday. Not every Tuesday, every first Tuesday. And
today, this morning, I went to Bloom High School for a manufacturing day. It was all the local manufacturers and businesses that are here locally, including Sauk Village, Chicago Heights, Stager, and South Chicago Heights had representations that go either to Bloom or Bloom Trail, and we had representations from Bloom Trail and Rickover, 8th graders in Rickover. The local businesses gave a tour. They split it up, and a lot of students went to different places. They went to Winpack, they went to Bear Paint in Sauk Village, and they went to some of the other businesses, large businesses that are in Chicago Heights, Stager, and South Chicago Heights. I think it was very informative. It was glad to see the youth out there, and there's something that I was kind of thinking about. The schools put this on, and it's very good to see that they were interested in, and also I talked to a couple of businesses to find out about apprenticeships, and they actually, some of them that are large enough actually do offer apprenticeships, so something I will be looking into. Also, Sam's Club and Jewel Oscar will be here Friday, October 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Sam's Club will be doing a renewal or new memberships So those that want Sam Club cards will be here, they'll be in the hallway. And then Jewel will be offering flu shots with a 10% coupon for groceries when you get your shot. So you get shot and get 10%. That's all I can tell you. You know, you may need some medicine. But anyway, we have some flyers for this on the back of the, at the table, so if anyone wants to pick it up, there's a reminder. But if you haven't gotten your flu shot, that's a good idea. That's a good thing. Free is always good. So, but and if you have had the flu, not the flu, but pneumonia, it really you should really think about talking to your doctor about getting the pneumonia shot too. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It was moved by Trustee Bruin, second by Trustee Todd. All in favor? Aye. Opposes? Motion carried.